following is a presentation of the Reviewing Network Sports. Ho, 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 ho! Merry Christmas Eve and welcome to a special holiday edition of the NFL Network. No, I'm not going to do that voice throughout the entire show, but it's Christmas Eve, everybody! Santa's really coming soon. Let's just go with that, but hi everybody, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, whatever you guys celebrate out there. Happy holidays, everybody, and welcome to the penultimate week of the regular season of the NFL. And week 17 is right around the corner. It begins actually tomorrow with a Christmas Day triple-header that started out promisingly when the schedule was announced, but yeah, not looking too pretty right now, with half the teams pretty much banged up and injured. The other half kind of is coming off of some big losses over the last week, especially if you're Detroit and Denver, considering playoff implications. But hey, we'll delve into all of those as we go along with this show today. And with all that said, we've got a lot to get to here, so let's just go ahead and jump right into it. I've got my magic bag right here, ladies and gentlemen, and what do I have inside of here? Why, what do you know? You hear the music, and you know what that means. It's another edition of the NFL Network's Path to the Playoffs! Okay, you got the point. Okay, so yeah, things were pretty busy in Week 16, and most of the new playoff clinchers this weekend mostly came from, quite honestly, simply and effectively, other teams losing to essentially get the specific teams into the fold here. Let's start off with the AFC, and you can see that most of the spots are pretty filled, with only 2 spots remaining on the list here. You see the Denver Broncos still hanging into the number 1 spot right now, with the AFC's number 1 seed, despite losing to Jacksonville this weekend. New England punched their ticket to the postseason with a win on Sunday night against Baltimore, sitting there at 12-3. If they win out and Denver loses out, they get the number 1 seed. Jacksonville is still in contention for the number 1 seed. They would need to win out and get some help, but right now they're sitting pretty comfortably to win the AFC South at 11-4. Of course, they clinched their playoff spot with the loss to the Colts loss to the 49ers on Monday night. Pittsburgh, how about that? You guys are back up at the 4th spot right now. You can get as high as the 3 spot if you win out, but that's easier said than done, and you would possibly also need help from Jacksonville to lose down there too. But Pittsburgh right now comfortably in a position where I did not think they were going to be at, especially considering who they just beat this weekend. But we'll touch on that later on in the show. But they're still hanging in there, and they have a chance to clinch a playoff spot before they even take the field on Sunday against the Browns. We'll touch on that in a little bit. But the other 2 teams that clinched, the Los Angeles Chargers are in. They're sitting at 11-4 right now, with the potential to win the AFC West if Denver loses a couple of games, and if Los Angeles beats Denver in Week 18. That's one of those games to keep an eye out for potentially the Sunday Night Football finale at Week 18. And then the Buffalo Bills are in the playoffs once again, making it now 8 consecutive years now, I believe. 8 consecutive years? Well, no, they weren't in 2018, so 7 of the last 8 years. Let's go with that. How about that? Even that I think is wrong. 2017 was the first time they made the playoffs since the 1999 season. So 2007, 2009, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024. Yeah, 8 times in the last 9 years, pretty much. Bottom line, the Buffalo Bills are still hanging in there for the AFC East title, but they need New England to lose out. But then again, the Patriots have the Jets and the Dolphins, so that's easier said than done. But hey, stranger things have happened. The Texans can clinch a playoff spot this weekend if they beat the Los Angeles Chargers. And once again, still in the hunt for the playoffs. Yes, the Colts are still in there. I don't know why. They've lost their last 5 games, and they're still sitting there not officially eliminated yet. Baltimore has a chance to get eliminated before the Colts do. Who would have guessed that would have happened? But then again, the Colts, remember that at one point they were the number 1 seed. They were 8-1, and then second half of the season came around. But we'll touch on that later on in the show here. So that's the story right now with the AFC playoff picture. Now let's go ahead and make a trip over to the NFC, which saw radical changes all across the board, especially with the top seed in the NFC. Last week it was the Los Angeles Rams, but then Seattle beat them on Thursday Night Football in an overtime thriller. They now sit at the number 1 seed and control their own destiny. The Chicago Bears clinch the playoff spot. They have not clinched the division just yet, but they're sitting at the number 2 spot, and they also have a chance to potentially get the number 1 seed. Philadelphia, it's going to be a little bit tougher for them to do it. They've won the division, though. They are sitting at 10-5. They're the only team in the NFC to win their division. In fact, they're the only team in the playoffs right now to win their division right now. Carolina, sweet Carolina, sitting at 8-7 right now after a pretty good win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They are in the driver's seat right now. If Tampa Bay loses this week and Carolina wins, they get in the playoffs, and they will take the 4 spot. San Francisco and clinched their playoff spot with the win over the Colts on Monday night. And then the Los Angeles Rams already clinched their playoff spot, but now they went from the 1 seed to the 6 seed. And Green Bay is sitting at 9-5-1, even after their devastating loss to Chicago. If they win on Saturday night against Baltimore, I believe they're in the playoffs. I believe they're in there. And that's bad news for Detroit. Essentially, Detroit essentially needs to win out and hope the Packers lose out, which is easier said than done. Tampa Bay is more straightforward. If Tampa Bay wins out, they're in. If Tampa Bay loses, which, considering they started the season 5-1 and they've only won 2 games since then, it's not looking too good for them. But if they lose out, Carolina becomes the 4 seed, which I don't think anybody really saw that coming overall. I expected Carolina to be better, but not that better. I mean, good Lord, but hey, good for them. They finally got it together when it was all said and done. But those are the current playoff pictures right now. So let's go ahead and go through the playoff scenarios for this week, because there are a lot to talk about here. So essentially, what needs to happen is this. We'll start with the NFC. Seattle will clinch a first-round bye and home field advantage with a Seattle win, a Los Angeles Rams loss or tie, and a San Francisco-Chicago tie. Seattle clinches the NFC West Division title if they win, plus the Rams lose, plus the 49ers lose, or a tie, or a Rams loss, or a San Francisco loss. All Chicago needs to do is win, and they win the NFC North. They also get it if Green Bay loses, or if Chicago and Green Bay tie. Carolina can clinch the NFC South Division title with a win or a Tampa Bay loss, or a Carolina tie and a Tampa Bay loss. Green Bay can clinch a playoff spot with a Detroit loss or a Green Bay win. In the AFC, the Denver Broncos can clinch a first-round bye and home field advantage, but they need these things to happen. They need to win, they need New England to lose, they need the Chargers to lose, they need Jacksonville to lose, and they need Buffalo to lose. Denver clinches the AFC West Division title with a win and a Chargers loss, or a tie and a Chargers loss. New England can clinch the AFC East Division title with a New England win or a Buffalo loss, or a New England tie or Buffalo loss. Jacksonville can clinch the AFC South title with a win and a Houston loss, or a Jacksonville tie and a Houston loss. The Steelers can clinch the AFC North 2 ways. Either they win against the Cleveland Browns, or, like I said, they could play on Sunday and already know that they're going to win the AFC North because Baltimore plays Green Bay on Saturday night. And if Baltimore loses, then the Steelers automatically win the AFC North title, effectively making that Week 18 matchup with the Steelers and Ravens is pointless now. And Houston can clinch a playoff spot with a win or an Indianapolis loss, or a Tampa Bay win, San Francisco win, Los Angeles Rams win, Buffalo win, Baltimore win, and Kansas City win. And according to what it says here on PlayoffScenarios.com, Scenario 3 is for Houston clinching a tie and strength of victory with Indianapolis, while also clinching strength of schedule over Indianapolis. Detroit will be eliminated from playoff contention with a loss or a Green Bay win. Tampa Bay is eliminated with a loss and a Carolina win. Green Bay would be knocked out of NFC North contention if they lose or tie with the Chicago Bears, or if Chicago wins. The Rams can be knocked out of the division title by simply losing, tying plus a Seahawk win, tying plus a Seahawk tie and a San Francisco tie, tying plus a San Francisco win, and Seattle plus a San Francisco win. San Francisco was knocked out of NFC West title contention with a loss and a Seattle win, or a San Francisco tie or a Seattle win. San Francisco will be out of 1-seed contention with a loss or a tie or a Seattle win. Chicago's out of a 1-seed contention with a loss, a tie, or a Seattle win and tie. Baltimore is eliminated from the playoffs if they lose to the Packers on Saturday night or Pittsburgh wins against Cleveland. Indianapolis will be eliminated if they lose or if Houston wins, or scenario 3, Tampa Bay wins, San Francisco wins, Los Angeles wins, Buffalo wins, Baltimore wins, Kansas City wins. Buffalo was knocked out of AFC East title contention with a loss and a New England tie, winner tie, or a tie and a New England win. Buffalo would be out of 1-seed contention with a number of different scenarios here, but simply and effectively, if they lose and New England wins, then they're pretty much out of it. And a lot of these involving Buffalo losses and needing Denver, the Chargers, and Jacksonville to win. I'm not going to run through all of these for you here. Just you get the idea overall. Houston will be knocked out of AFC South title contention with a loss and a Jacksonville win, or a tie and a Jacksonville win. Houston is knocked out of the 1-seed contention with a loss, a Denver win, or a New England win. Los Angeles Chargers are knocked out of an AFC West title contention with a Chargers loss, Denver win, or a Chargers tie and Denver win. Chargers are knocked out of 1-seed contention with a number of different scenarios, all of them involving the Chargers either losing or tying, and Denver, New England, Jacksonville, Buffalo winning. Denver and New England, plus there's one that has like 5 different combined wins. So either New York, Washington, Detroit, Carolina, Tampa Bay, Arizona, San Francisco, Cleveland. It's very complicated stuff. New England is knocked out of 1-seed contention with a loss and a Denver win, a New England loss, a Denver tie, and a Los Angeles Chargers win. Jacksonville's knocked out of 1-seed contention with a Jacksonville loss, Denver win. Basically, Jacksonville losing and either Denver, New England, Los Angeles winning. So, like I said, I'm not going to run through everything on that one there, but you get the idea overall. So there you go. That's where we stand right now. So I would not be surprised if we're going to get a much clearer picture of where everything needs to be for week number 18. What game is essentially going to be the week 18 finale. If I had to put money on it right now, I think the best bet is going to be either Chicago or Detroit. That one essentially deciding if Detroit makes the playoffs or not, because I think they will win this weekend. San Francisco, Carolina and Tampa Bay to decide the winner of the NFC South, or San Francisco and Seattle to decide the NFC's number 1 seed. I think those are the 3 best bets right now, but there's also the possibility that the Steelers and Ravens game could mean something. And also the Indianapolis-Houston finale could also mean something, even though Indianapolis right now is pretty much hanging on thin ice right now, but we'll touch on all of that in just a moment here, but let's go ahead and get to our usual format here on the show, and that is, of course, the power rankings for this week. And some of the teams we just mentioned, all up in the top 10 here for the most part here. So let's go ahead and get right to it. I'll start off with number 5, the Los Angeles Chargers, who have been very consistent all throughout the course of December, sitting comfortably right now at 11-4. They beat the Dallas Cowboys pretty good on Sunday, and putting up a pretty dominant performance overall, keeping them in contention for the AFC West Division title. Number 4, the Seattle Seahawks, moving up there and really getting a big win in an overtime thriller on Thursday night. I mean, that was a really damn good game overall, where the Seahawks just did not give up, and everyone's been waiting for that one game for the Seattle Seahawks to prove that they are worthy of being high up there with some of the best teams in the NFL. And that game in particular, I mean, what they did to the Rams was pretty impressive, especially with that fourth quarter comeback overall, which really you could blame it on the Rams being a little too conservative and essentially keeping them in the game overall. But they learned the hard way in that one, I'll tell you that much. But number 3, I think this is the first time I've actually had these guys up here in a long time, honestly. The Jacksonville Jaguars. They went into the house of the best team in the AFC right now, the Denver Broncos, and did a pretty good job of keeping them contained and putting up a big win that makes you realize Jacksonville may be for real. I mean, we've been waiting for this for a long time, but look at where they are right now, 11-4, potential for the number 1 seed in the AFC if they keep this up and get some help from Denver and New England losing. I mean, this is a good team that could really. This is probably the best chance for the Jacksonville Jaguars to get as far as the Super Bowl that they've had in a long time. I mean, this really does feel like a really good football team that can compete and go deep into the playoff hunt. Number 2, the Buffalo Bills still hanging around in there, even though they almost lost a close one to Cleveland overall, but still hanging in there. Still have the still still one of the overall best teams in the AFC this season. And then the number one team this week. I think this is actually the first time I've had them as the number one team this year, is in this season. And how can you not put the Chicago Bears up there, especially with the way they came back in that game against Green Bay? I mean, the Chicago Bears may be for real here. I mean, they have been playing not lights out football. I mean, just like with Jacksonville, who would have guessed that they would have been a team that is potentially in contention for the number one seed? But Caleb Williams is really coming into his own. Getting Ben Johnson was obviously the right move for the Chicago Bears. I mean, it's good times right now for Chicago. Now the question is, can you keep it up? Can you keep that momentum going in these last couple of games here? We will find out in the next couple of days as we go ahead and take a look now. Let's go ahead and jump into my Week 17 NFL predictions, the penultimate week of the 2025 season. And in terms of my predictions from Week 16, they're about as good as I did last week. In fact, literally the same as I did last week. 11 of 16, 68.7%. I'm getting consistent now, so I think I have a good idea of where I'm going here. And I say that, and now we're going to go ahead and go into this week where I'm probably going to end up losing this one pretty badly overall. But let's go ahead and begin with the Christmas Day triple header that we have coming up for you on Christmas Day. We have our first game here, the Dallas Cowboys going to Washington to take on the Commanders. Commanders! Oh boy. You guys have been taking a beating all season long, and now you're down to your third-string quarterback in Josh Johnson, which I don't even know if he's going to play this week overall. I mean, you don't have Jaden Daniels. He's done for the season. Marcus Mariota suffers a serious injury. I mean, this team has just been the total opposite of where they were last year, which goes to show you, as many teams that we'll talk about on here, it goes to show you one simple thing. If you make it all the way to the NFC Championship game, don't just assume that you can just go back there the next year, because look at what's happened to them and look what's going to happen to a team that we'll get to in just a second here. Yeah, it's not looking good right now for the Washington Commanders. I mean, they're just waiting for the season to be over with here. But then again, so are the Cowboys, who essentially have just lost all sense of control. They've lost all sense of hope overall. They got eliminated from the playoffs before last Sunday's game. So, yeah, they're just waiting for the season to be over at this point. But nevertheless, LeBron James. I'm saying that because I'm watching ESPN, and he's on my television right now. But excuse me. Dak Prescott, still doing a pretty good job overall, despite not being able to get his team back to January football once again. George Pickens has been pretty solid overall. It's the difference between them and the Commanders is that the Cowboys are at least a team that has their pieces together. They just had some bad defense early on in the season that really hurt them in the long run here. So this one in particular, I mean, it's really not that hard to pick a winner here. I'm picking the winner. I'm picking the team that clearly has more stable pieces on them than the other team, which the other team is unfortunately the Washington Commanders, but the team that has the most stable people on their team right now is the Dallas Cowboys. So not surprisingly at all, I'm going to go with the Dallas Cowboys to go into Washington and get a win here to at least move back up to some form of respectability here, and who knows, maybe they can make it to a non-losing season this season if they keep this pace up here. So I'm going to go with the Cowboys to go to 7-8-1 and the Commanders to drop to 4-12. Following that, you have got the Detroit Lions coming off of that devastating loss against the Steelers. We'll talk about that in just a second here. They're going to take on the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings coming off of a win in New York, even though they lost J.J. McCarthy to an injury in that game, and Max Broswell had to finish that game up here. They won that game, but come on. It was against the New York Giants. I mean, even I could beat the New York Giants, and I don't even play football, but yeah, let's not pretend like this is a big deal overall. Like, they beat the Giants. Woo, congratulations. You're a bully that just picked on the would-beest kid in the school. Like, good for you. You made yourself look better. But they're going to be taking on the Detroit Lions, who really, that was a wild game Sunday against the Steelers. A game that I had the Lions predicted to win, and it looked like it was going to be that way. It looked like it was going to go in the direction where the Lions were going to pull off the upset win. But then the refs decided to welcome the Lions back to the pre-Dan Campbell era and screw them over in a big way. And you know how the game ended. You know, they called it a touchdown. However, the ref literally said that after that. However, there was an offensive pass interference. We have a runoff, the game is over. And people were so pissed off at that. Even though that was a good offensive pass interference call. I mean, you can't deny that. But I just loved how everybody just lost their minds. Like, they acted like, oh, this is a travesty. Like, this has never happened to the Detroit Lions before. Immediately after that, I had to go find this compilation of the Lions getting screwed over by the refs. Because this is something that's been going on for years now. I mean, the Lions have always gotten screwed by the refs. I mean, they literally had a game literally end the same way this one did. I mean, this one literally ended the same way it did a couple years ago against the Cardinals, where it was like I think it was like game 3 of the 17th season, where the Lions had just scored a touchdown in the final seconds, but then the refs came in and said, "The ruling on the field has been changed. The runner was short of the goal line. And there was no and because the team didn't have a timeout, we have a 10-second runoff and the game is over." And like, that literally is what happened in this game here. And that's a costly loss for the Lions because their season is pretty much over and done with here. I mean, they really need a miracle for them to get into the playoffs. They essentially need Green Bay to lose out, which I don't think they're going to do here. I think they will end up winning some games here. I know they have a chance at one game that we'll get to in just a little bit here, but the good news is for the Lions is that they're taking on a Minnesota Vikings team where their season's pretty much over, and they got wins over lesser teams. I mean, they beat the Cowboys, they beat the Giants, they beat the Commanders. That's not really that hard of a thing to do for those 3 teams in general. So, yeah, I think the Lions are in good position to win this game here, and it's important for the Lions to win because if the Lions lose this game, Green Bay wins a playoff spot and essentially makes them playing on Saturday night completely pointless because they would not need to play anybody since they would not need to play since they would already be in the playoffs in general here. There might be a possibility for them to possibly play their backups in that one, especially right now with Jordan Love now faced with a concussion, and then Malik Willis got injured in that game. But of course, as a Steelers fan, I don't want that to happen, but you never know. But I think the Lions are in a position to win this game here, knowing that they still have to win to make the playoffs. I think they win this game overall. I think the Lions go to 9-7, and the Vikings drop to 7-9. And then following that, we have as a nightcap on Christmas night, we have the Denver Broncos is going to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs. The Broncos suffered their first loss in 11 games. They lost a brutal one to the Jacksonville Jaguars, who came in there and just mopped the floor with them all game long and basically denied the Broncos a chance to clinch the number 1 seed and maybe get some help to secure a first-round bye and everything. But, they still got a little bit of a way to go. I still think they're in a good position to win the AFC's number 1 seed, and especially the AFC West right now. And I think that will continue into this game here as they take on a Kansas City Chiefs team. Oh, I'm sorry, the Kansas Chiefs now. Yeah, that was a story that just happened in the last couple of hours, that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to be moving to Missouri. They're actually going to be moving out of Kansas in 2031. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? It's a dome arena. Wow. And it looks exactly like every other goddamn dome arena that we've ever seen since they started building them. I mean, there's literally nothing about the stadium design I'm looking at here that looks different from the other stadiums that look like this, even the ones that are being made. But the funny thing about this is, I saw something from Joe Pompliano from the Joe Pomp Show, and he had a tweet online basically running through the term sheet of this new stadium in Kansas City, and it turns out it's one of the most lopsided stadium deals in NFL history, because here's what happens. Kansas essentially gets the Chiefs is essentially giving the Chiefs $3 billion, yet getting virtually nothing in return. They get stadium funding, mixed-use development funding, tax incentives. The Chiefs get to keep 100% of the revenue from all stadium activities, including ticket sales, concessions, sponsorships, naming rights deals, personal seat licenses, and more, and that applies to NFL games and other events. Kansas will own the stadium, with the Chiefs paying $7 million in rent annually, but that money doesn't go to the state. It goes into an account the Chiefs can use for renovations, repairs, and operational expenses. That means the Chiefs can use their own rent money to hire stadium security, parking staff, and concession vendors throughout the season. But, yeah, basically Kansas is getting screwed by welcoming in the Chiefs here. I mean, this is a pretty bad-looking deal in general here. But, hey, for the Chiefs in general, this is essentially the best thing that's happened to them in the last 11 days. I mean, talk about a collapse of epic proportions for the Kansas City Chiefs. You get eliminated from the playoffs. Your star quarterback has a torn ACL that could keep him out of this first half of next season, and then your backup quarterback Gardner Minshew also tears his ACL, and now he's going to be out. So they basically have to start Shane Buechele, a third-string quarterback, on Christmas night in Arrowhead against the Denver Broncos team, pissed off that Jacksonville came into their home and beat them. So yeah, needless to say, this is not going to be a good Christmas night for the Denver Broncos, for the Kansas City Chiefs, I should say, because yeah, they looked pretty terrible against Tennessee. Which, by the way, thank you for letting me know. Thank you for all these out there for not realizing that I was one of the few people that actually said Tennessee was going to beat Kansas City, but that was just me thinking that Tennessee was going to use that as a way for Cam Ward to get a big win off his play. Hey, you face the Kansas City Chiefs. Excuse me. You face the Chiefs, you get, without Patrick Mahomes, you get a big win there. I'm looking right now on ESPN. Denver's a 13.5-point favorite in this game. That's a lot. And yeah, it's clear that Kansas City is missing its star quarterback. And yeah, Gardner Minshew wasn't getting it done. I don't think Shane Buechele's going to get it done either. Not Shane Buechele. I said that there was their third string QB. No, Chris Oladokun, who was actually drafted by the Steelers, is their third-string QB that's starting on Christmas night, and Shane Buechele will be the backup. But either way you look at it, yeah, Kansas City's going to have a really bad Christmas, because I think Denver is going to go in there and beat the living crap out of this depleted Kansas City team. So yeah, I'm going to take the Broncos to go to 13-3, and the Chiefs to drop to 6-10. And then a Saturday doubleheader on the Saturday after Christmas with playoff implications in both games. We've got the Houston Texans taking on the Los Angeles Chargers in a game where the Texans can clinch a playoff spot if they win. The Chargers can move one step closer next to the Broncos, making that Week 18 matchup with them very intriguing overall. And again, could be a preview of a Sunday night football finale if things work out in their favor. But the Chargers coming off of that big win against the Dallas Cowboys. The Texans I wouldn't say they got a big win. I mean, it was a closer win than they expected against the Raiders. I mean, the Raiders definitely showed up this time around, unlike last week where they got just mollywopped and just completely destroyed. I mean, they kept it close with the Texans in this one, with this one this past week. So, yeah. But the Texans, regardless, still got their 7th straight win. Texans are in a good position right now to make the playoffs here, and they can do that this week, going to SoFi Stadium and taking on the Chargers and possibly beating them. This is a tough one to call because the Texans have been looking pretty solid over the last couple of weeks. The offense is getting better. The defense is one of the best in the NFL. But the Chargers are a solid football team. They've not had that moment when they've not had that moment where you could tell that something bad is about to happen to them. Even though they've had a ton of injuries. Justin Herbert's playing with a broken finger or broken arm, broken hand or something like that. But he's playing with a severe injury, and the fact that he's playing as well as he's doing, I mean, more power to him, man. This is a tough son of a bitch. I'll tell you that much. But I'm looking at this, I'm thinking of which team desperately needs a win here that more. Is the Chargers needed? The Texans needed? I really don't think it's going to matter in this one here. I think of the two teams that really need it, I think the Texans are the one that need the most because they need to win this to essentially put themselves in the playoffs, and I think they'll be ready to go in this one here. If they can continue to have the strong defense and the offense keeps getting better, this Texans team is going to be really, really tough, and they could go a long way if they keep this up, if they keep this pace up here. So I'm actually going to give this one to the Texans in this one. I think they're going to pull an upset in Los Angeles on Saturday. Give me the Texans to go to 11-5 and the Chargers to drop to 11-5. And then we have the Saturday night capper with the Baltimore Ravens going to take on the Green Bay Packers. The Packers, in the fourth, they had a fourth quarter lead against Chicago, but then flashbacks of the 2014 NFC Championship game came back in their heads as the onside kick was not recovered by Green Bay. Chicago got it back, and then Chicago drove it down the field to send it to overtime with a touchdown, and then Caleb Williams threw the bomb to DJ Moore 60 yards down the field to win the game for the Chicago Bears. And not only that, the Packers lost Jordan Love in that game to a concussion. They're hoping to get him back this week. It looks like he may have a chance to come back. We don't know for certain yet. And also, you got to remember, Malik Willis is also dealing with an injury too. I mean, Malik Willis right now suffered an injury in the end of that game overall. And so now it's going to be interesting to see where they go from here, because their third string QB I believe, is Clayton Tune. If I'm not mistaken, I believe that's their third string quarterback right now. Yeah, Clayton Tune is their third string QB, and we don't know if Jordan Love or Malik Willis can't go. I don't know who else they're going to get to. It might just be Clayton Tune. They might have to get another backup QB to possibly take his place overall. But yeah, Green Bay has had a lot of injuries in the last month or so. They went from being a top Super Bowl contender to losing Micah Parsons for the season. They're lucky that Jordan Love didn't suffer a serious injury, because it looked like when it happened, it looked like it was a much more serious injury than people were expecting it to be. But luckily he did. But luckily he looks like he did. It looks like he's going to be okay. So. Depending on what happens this week, it's going to be very interesting to see how this one pans out with the Green Bay Packers and who's going to be starting in that game. But they're going to be taking on the Baltimore Ravens, who they themselves are also dealing with a quarterback issue right now, because Lamar Jackson had a really bad back injury in that loss to the New England Patriots. There's a lot of problems right now with the Baltimore Ravens right now. The Baltimore Ravens essentially are in a position right now where they're not utilizing their star talents. I mean, yeah, Tyler Huntley's been doing okay as the backup overall, but Derrick Henry, you brought him in there to be the last piece of your puzzle, and yet you don't play him in the last 12 minutes of your game against the Patriots when you're up 24-13? Like, what the hell is wrong with you, John Harbaugh? Like, wasn't that the reason you brought him in there in the first place? And because of that loss to New England, they are in a much more dire position to miss the playoffs than the Steelers were just a few weeks ago. They are now in the position that the Steelers were a couple weeks ago. That's really hard to believe. But then again, this is what the Ravens do sometimes. I mean, there are times when they start off bad, but then they get better as the season goes on. There's times when they start off strong, and then they peter off at the end of the season. This year's been a mix of everything. It's like a roller coaster, because remember, they started at 1-5. They looked like they're going to be out pretty quickly and not be in the playoffs. But then after the bye week, they started winning all those games. They won their next 5. Then they had the Thanksgiving Day disaster against Cincinnati. Then they lost to Pittsburgh, and now they lost to New England. And now with 2 tough games ahead, I mean, it's going to be tough sailing for the Ravens to make a run here, especially if Lamar Jackson can't go and they have to trust Tyler Huntley. Plus, you're going into Lambeau Field, which is always going to be hostile territory for any away team. So yeah, needless to say, I think the Green Bay Packers have a pretty damn good chance of winning this game overall. I think the Packers win this one. I'm going to predict them to win it, to go to 10-5-1, and the Ravens drop to 7-9, effectively ending their playoff chances and giving the Pittsburgh Steelers the AFC North before they even take the field against the Browns on Sunday. Next up, we have got the Arizona Cardinals going to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals. Cincinnati has had a roller coaster season. I mean, they're no longer in the playoffs anymore, but they're still playing right now, and there's going to be a lot of questions about where they go from here. Does Zach Taylor go after this season, after another disappointing season? Will these last couple of games be the last time we see Joe Burrow wearing the Cincinnati Bengals uniform? He's been possibly speculating about maybe playing somewhere else. But, yeah, that's going to be something very interesting to watch over the offseason in general here. I think there's going to be a lot of significant changes with Cincinnati because of the way the season began. A promising start, 2-0 for the first time in several years. And yet, when Joe Burrow went down, they just had no answers on how to fix their quarterback issue. They brought in Joe Flacco, but, yeah, Joe Flacco didn't really do much for them overall. But, yeah, it's not looking too good for the Bengals right now. But they played their best game last week against the Miami Dolphins. But then again, now, when you don't have Tua Tagovailoa as the quarterback, that's not really that hard to do. They're going to be taking on the Arizona Cardinals, who are just, like, as I said before, they're just waiting for this season to be over with here, and it's not getting any better. I mean, again, the Arizona Cardinals also had a strong start to the season and then just couldn't get anything together when it was all said and done. And, yeah, it sucks for them right now overall. But in this matchup here, you got to go with the one that has the much better outlook right now, and that is, of course, the Cincinnati Bengals. I think the Bengals do win this one here. I don't think it's going to be close. I'd have the Bengals going to 6-10, and the Arizona Cardinals dropping to 3-13. Following that, we have a very intriguing matchup here in the NFC playoff picture. We've got the Seattle Seahawks taking on the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers coming off their huge win against Tampa Bay to put them in the driver's seat, give them the position. They're in position to win the NFC South right now after a big win over Tampa Bay. The Seattle Seahawks are in a good position right now to ride their own destiny into the number 1 seed, sitting at 12-3 with after that big Thursday night overtime win against the Rams. This could be a very tough game overall for both teams here. I mean, Carolina's been one of those teams that even though they're very much high in the playoff hunt, it's really hard to get a real grasp on them because they'll look pretty good for a good chunk of the time, but then you go into a game where you should win, like against the New Orleans Saints, and then not only lose to them once but twice. And yeah, it's a very odd team overall, especially when you consider that even though they lose to teams like the New Orleans Saints, they beat teams like the Los Angeles Rams, the Green Bay Packers, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean that's pretty impressive overall here. I mean, whatever they're doing in Carolina, it's working, but a little consistency would be nice for them overall. I mean, they have not been consistent since week 7 when they won 3 straight and went to 4-3, but then they've lost a game, they win a game. They lost a game, they win a game. They lost a game, they win a game. They lost a game, win a game. So by that logic, they should probably lose against Seattle. And while I think that is definitely what's going to happen here, you might be surprised. I mean, I don't know. Maybe Carolina bucks that trend here so they could try to clinch a playoff spot this weekend, but I don't think that's going to happen here. I think the Seattle Seahawks are going to be just too tough for them to take, so I'm going to go ahead and take the Seahawks here to win this one here. I think it'll be a much closer matchup than people expect it to be. Give me the Seahawks to go to 13-3 and the Panthers to drop to 8-8. And then we have a critical matchup in the AFC North. The Steelers taking on the Cleveland Browns in Cleveland. The Browns, hey, give them credit. They fought tooth and nail against the Buffalo Bills. They had a chance to win that game, but it just wasn't enough in the end. They couldn't get a chance down the field. Once again, Shedeur Sanders got taken out of the game inexplicably, mostly because he suffered a pinky injury. And the questions about and that raises more eyebrows about what Kevin Stefanski thinks of this team in general overall by having them in there. I mean, there's going to be that's another team that's going to have a lot of question marks going into this game overall. And as for the Steelers, that was a game on Sunday. That was a wild, wild game, which I honestly thought the Lions were going to just dismantle any hope the Steelers had left. But lo and behold, the Steelers came in there, and they put together a pretty good game plan over the Lions overall. I mean, it got much too close at the end, but nevertheless, overall for the first 3 quarters, Steelers did a pretty good job of keeping up with the Lions and keeping them from getting too many big plays overall. Once again, fourth quarter didn't really help all that much, but of course, I can't talk about the Steelers and the Lions without talking about the thing that happened with DK Metcalf. We found out today that he is going to be suspended for the next 2 games, and that's okay. First of all, yeah, I agree that DK Metcalf should not have done that. I don't care if he was provoked and all that, but at the same time, though, the guy who provoked him was clearly a guy that was trying to be an influencer cancer, pretty much. I mean, that's pretty much what he was doing. I mean, there's literally videos out there that are literally showing him after the fact where it's just like, I got exactly what I want. It's just like, fuck that dude. I mean, seriously, F that dude overall. But regardless, DK Metcalf did something stupid, and it cost him the last 2 games of the season. Hopefully it won't be the last time we see him this season. Hopefully the Steelers will make it into the playoffs, and I think they have a good chance to do it. However, they're going into Cleveland, and that has always been a problem with them. It's been a problem with that for a number of years. They've only won 1 time in Cleveland in the last 6 years, and half of those games were primetime games. This is a 1 o'clock game. The Browns are not a good football team, but then again, this is their Super Bowl. This is them. Every time they play the Steelers, it's their Super Bowl. Myles Garrett is still trying to get that sack record, and what a coincidence. It doesn't happen against the Buffalo game. I wonder why that is. Maybe he's waiting for this game to happen. So the hope is that the Steelers will have clinched the playoffs already by the time they kick off on Sunday, but that's not a guarantee. Stranger things have happened overall, but I may be a little bit I may go against type this time around because I do think the Steelers have a chance to win it, but I know this is a game that the Browns have won more times than not. I mean, like I said, this is their Super Bowl, beating the Steelers. They don't care about anything else. They can never win a real Super Bowl in their life. If they can beat the Steelers once a year in their home, that's their Super Bowl. So I might regret this decision overall because I was going to go with the Browns at first, but I'm a little more confident in the Steelers now, so I'm gonna go ahead and pick them to win this one. Maybe, yes. Give me the Steelers to go to 10-6 and the Browns to go to 3-13. There, I said it, and I might be regretting that decision when it's all said and done. So, yeah, if the Steelers do lose to the Browns on Sunday, I will take full responsibility for that. So, yeah, this one has to be worried, but like I said, hopefully they've already clinched the AFC North before they kick off. That's hopeful. That's the hopeful thing, but yeah, it's a cause for concern for everybody. It's going to be one of those games where it is going to be much closer than people expect it to be. Browns will probably play their best game of the season overall against this team, even if they lose. That's what's probably going to happen in this one. So yeah, I still think the Steelers win it, go to 10-6. Browns to drop to 3-13. Following that, we have a matchup between the Tennessee Titans and the New Orleans Saints. The Titans got another win last week against the Kansas City Chiefs, and now they're facing a New Orleans Saints team that has been well out of the playoffs, but has played a lot better in the last couple of weeks. Tyler Shuck has definitely done a really good job of stepping into that mold, and he could be the future overall. They could build a team around this guy. They have won 3 straight. Granted, it's not against real tough contenders overall. Tampa Bay, Carolina, New York. I mean, not really all that spectacular overall, but it does give you a little bit of hope for the future for the New Orleans Saints. If they keep this up, if they build a team around Tyler Shuck, get him some weapons overall, get some help on the defense, because I think Cam Jordan's heading into his last couple of games with the Saints. I mean, there's a possibility that they could really make some noise here. As for Tennessee, they just came off their big win facing the Kansas City Chiefs, giving Cam Ward some good motivation going into next season overall. A tough game overall, but because the Saints have been playing much better than the Titans have, I'm going to go with them to win this one here. I think they'll keep that momentum going here, and I think it'll give a lot of people some good hope, good expectations in the future for the Saints overall. So, going into next season. So I'm going to take the Saints to win this one to go to 6-12, and the Titans to drop to 3-13. And then following that, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the Indianapolis Colts. The Jaguars coming off of their big win over the Denver Broncos on Sunday in Mile High Stadium. They're in a prime position right now to fight for the number 1 seed. They're going to be taking on the Indianapolis Colts in their home stadium in Lucas Oil. And, okay, I know everyone is looking at the Indianapolis Colts and looking at Phillip Rivers just like, oh, what a motivational story. He's coming out of retirement after 5 years. He played amazingly in these last 2 games. They still lost. I mean, let's not sugarcoat the obvious here. The Colts are terrible right now. They really are. They went from a team that was 8-2 and looking like they were going to be the number 1 seed in the AFC. And they have not done shit since then. They have lost. And that second half schedule was much tougher than their easy first half of the schedule. So, yeah, this is not a shock that this is happening right now. And lo and behold, this is where they're currently at right now. And you're facing a red-hot Jacksonville Jaguars team. I don't care how good Phillip Rivers is right now. This is not as bad as when Jeff Saturday took over for those games in 2022, but this is pretty pathetic by the Colts overall. They have lost their identity. They're barely using Jonathan Taylor. You have not heard about Tyler Warren in a long time. Remember, he was going to be the Offensive Player of the Year, Rookie of the Year. That ship sailed. Remember when Sauce Gardner was supposed to be the final piece of their puzzle, and he's been out for most of the season. I mean, this is not a good thing right now for the Colts overall. And to have a red hot Jacksonville Jaguar team coming in, yeah. Needless to say, that ship has pretty much sailed on their season overall. But the Jaguars, I think, should go into this one easily beat the Colts overall, going to 12-4. Colts dropping to 8-8. And yet somehow they might still be in the contention for the playoffs overall. I mean, we'll see what happens. It'll mostly depend on what happened with the Houston game, but we will see. Following that, we have got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on the Miami Dolphins in Tampa. The Buccaneers, yeah, like I said before, they started the year. They were 6-2 in October, looking like they were going to easily win another division. They have really relapsed since then. I mean, they have looked absolutely terrible. Even when they brought back Mike Evans, it hasn't been enough, and they've just completely lost that identity because the injuries have kept piling up. Baker Mayfield's been doing the best he can, but even he can't handle the pressure anymore. But the good news for them is that they're going to be taking on a Miami Dolphins team that looked absolutely abysmal last week with Quinn Ewers as the quarterback. They've already basically said that Tua is basically out of there, which I think is terrible because the fact that he survives and yet Mike McDaniel's gonna leave and he's gonna be forced out, and Mike McDaniel's is the one that's gonna stick around. Like, the coach is the problem, is part of the problem too here, guys. But sadly, that's what it's looking like right now. But yeah, this is I'm sorry. I said that this was in Tampa Bay. This is actually going to be in Miami at Hard Rock Stadium. So my fault on that one. But yeah, this is one where you have to think that Tampa Bay should win this one. I would think they would. I don't think Miami is really that good of a team right now. I think they're just looking for anything to go right for them at this point. But I don't think it's going to come for them this season. I think Tampa Bay gets a bounce back game here. They make it close again. They make it close for the Carolina Panthers. They make that Week 18 matchup count more. That probably will end up being the Sunday Night Football finale, we would think. But I think that'll make it. I think that'll be the case here. So I think the Buccaneers win this one, get back to 500, go to 8-8. Dolphins drop to 6-10. And then following that, we have had AFC East showdown between the New England Patriots and the New York Jets. The Patriots coming off that big comeback win over the Baltimore Ravens. I've been saying that I've been waiting for that tough game for them overall, and the Ravens really did give it to them at that point because the Patriots' schedule overall, I never really take them seriously as a threat for the division. Is for the AFC, mostly because their schedule has been so paper soft. It's not been a hard schedule for them. But then you get then you go to place because again, they lost to Buffalo in their home stadium when they could have easily clinched the AFC East. Now you have Now you go to Baltimore and you were down 24-13. They found a way to win that game, and that was probably their toughest game of the season overall. And they proved that they have a chance to do some business here. And now they go back to having a cakewalk schedule here. And the Jets, what do you got to say about the Jets? Their season has been absolutely abysmal. It hasn't gotten any better. They keep firing coaches. And, like I said before, NPNYJ, never picking New York Jets ever again. So, yeah, New England's going to win this one. I would be shocked if New England loses this one to the Jets. Patriots go to 13-3. Jets drop to 3-13. And then, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we have what is going to be both the worst game of the week and also the best game of the week, because we have got the New York Giants taking on the Las Vegas Raiders. And it's the best game of the week. It's the worst game of the week because this is two of the worst teams in football who made it a close matchup in their games. Giants almost beat the Vikings. Raiders almost beat the Texans, but they still lost. But it's important that it's the best game this week because more than likely, this is going to determine who gets the number one pick in the 2026 NFL Draft. Because right now, both teams are sitting at 2-13, and and this game could go a long way to determine which team is in the driver's seat for the number one pick in the draft. And if you're looking between these two teams here, Giants have their quarterback of the future, and if they were to somehow lose this game and get the number one pick, I think they end up sending that pick to the team that desperately needs a quarterback. I mean, that could be something that could be very interesting overall to see what happens. But the Raiders, if the Raiders are in desperate need of a quarterback, they need to get a quarterback that's not Geno Smith, that's not Kenny Pickett, and they basically need to just redo the whole thing all over again because Pete Carroll obviously is not doing a good job as the Raiders head coach, and they need a quarterback behind their star talent. I mean, they have a good running back in Ashton Genty. They have a good tight end in Brock Bowers. I mean, they just need to put a better team together here. So, looking at which the two teams that are there, look at the two teams that are here. Who's in desperate need of a win more? I would say the Giants, because the Giants have their quarterback of the future. They just need to get their star talent back on the field. Cam Scatterboo, Malik Neighbors will be back next year. A new head coach will do wonders for this team overall. They get some weapons in the draft. Yeah, I think the Giants need this win more than the Raiders do. So I'm going to go and pick the New York Giants to win this one here. It's not going to be a fun game to watch overall, but hey, by the end, we might find out who gets the number one pick in the draft. And if that happens here, I think the Raiders get it. So give me the Giants to go to 3-13, Raiders to drop to 2-14. And then following that, we have a pretty good matchup here that may or may not be a Super Bowl preview. Maybe. But it's really interesting that this is coming in the second to last week of the regular season. We've got the Philadelphia Eagles and the Buffalo Bills. The Eagles, I mean, they just mopped the floor with the Washington Commanders to secure the division title, the first team in 22 years to win back-to-back division titles since the last time since Andy Reid did it with the Eagles back then. They're going to be taking on the Buffalo Bills, who I mentioned before won a close game against Cleveland. So yeah, this is a very intriguing matchup overall here. It's the last regular season game in Highmark Stadium before they move into the new stadium next year. Could be the last game overall if New England wins out and Buffalo doesn't get the help they need to usurp New England. So this is an important game for the Buffalo Bills and more than it is for the Philadelphia Eagles. So it's more for the Bills to A, improve their playoff position, and B, give the fans of Buffalo one last great game at Highmark Stadium before they move into the new stadium next year. So I think the odds are definitely in the favor of the Buffalo Bills to win this one easily. I think it's going to be an intriguing matchup overall, but I think Buffalo will win this one. Buffalo moves to 12-4. Eagles drop to 10-6 in what should be the final game at Highmark Stadium. And then we got Sunday Night Football, and who would have guessed at the beginning of the season that this matchup would be for potentially the number one seed in the NFC. We've got the Chicago Bears taking on the San Francisco 49ers. The Chicago Bears winning a thriller in overtime on Saturday in a game that's now been called the Windy City Miracle, and it has a lot of parallels to the year before when Jayden Daniels threw that Hail Mary into the end zone for Washington to win that game and essentially turn their season around. That game may have turned the Chicago Bears season around to make them the dominant team in the NFC, but they're going to face a sleeping giant in the San Francisco 49ers who are still hanging in there, and they are still very much in prime position to potentially still get the number one seed, even though, kind of like with the New England Patriots, they've had a pretty easy schedule overall, so I really don't know how to take. I don't really think the 49ers are as great as everybody made them out to be. In fact, when I did my power rankings, everyone got pissed off at me because I didn't put the 49ers up higher. I'm sorry. I don't think the 49ers are that great. Yeah, they put up 48 points over Phillip Rivers and the Indianapolis Colts. I mean, that's not really saying a whole lot overall, so yeah, this is a very intriguing matchup here. It's going to be in Levi Stadium. Of course, Super Bowl 60 will be in Levi Stadium in February, with 49ers fans hoping that they can see their team playing in the Super Bowl that year. I don't think that's going to happen overall. I think this is going to be a very tough matchup overall, but not impossible for the Chicago Bears if they keep playing the way they have been playing all season long. You know, you can never count these guys out, especially after what happened last week against Green Bay. The possibilities are endless for where they could go right now, and I think the Bears have the better opportunity to win this game than the 49ers do. I think their defense overall has been pretty solid. The offense has been pretty good. They should get back Rome Odunze and Luther Burton this week. Those are two key weapons for them. And they can keep the 49ers off the field with their running game. They have one of the most important running games right now in the NFL, so the odds stack in the favor of the Bears more, I think, than the 49ers do. So I'm going to go ahead and take the Chicago Bears to pull an upset against San Francisco against the 49ers and put the Bears in the position to potentially move closer to the number one seed. So I'm going to take the Bears to win this one, go to 12-4, and the 49ers to drop to 11-5. And then finally, on Monday Night Football, we have got an intriguing matchup overall for two teams here. One of them is in the playoffs, the other is not, but has been playing really well the last couple of weeks. We've got the Los Angeles Rams taking on the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons coming off of a win against the Arizona Cardinals last week. It was a closer win than most people expected to. Arizona did put it up a fight, but in the end, it was too little too late. And of course, the same thing with the Rams. They put up a big fight with the Seattle Seahawks overall, and it ended up in favor of the Seahawks overall. And yeah, it was a pretty rough game, even though the Rams looked pretty good all night long. Puka Nacua, 225 yards, but yeah, concerns about him for some of the stuff he did pre-game and especially post-game, calling out the refs, essentially, you know, putting him in the position of maybe becoming a diva receiver in the next couple of years if they don't get. I mean, it's looking like it's going to head down that territory here, so they better be careful with him. But the Falcons overall have looked pretty solid the last couple of weeks. The Rams have looked pretty good overall so far this season. I think that loss against Seattle was really more of a Seattle winning that because Mike McDaniel had more balls to go for it for two, and knowing that you can't give the ball back to the Rams because they're going to run it down the field overall. I still think the Rams are the best team in this division right now, and I think they proved that this Monday when they beat the Falcons. I think they keep themselves in the position to stay for that number one seed. I'm going to pick the Rams to win this one here. I think they have the best chance of winning this one to go to 12-4, and the Falcons to drop to 6-10. So there you go. Those are my predictions for Week 17. Just to recap, I have the Cowboys over the Commanders, the Lions over the Vikings, the Broncos over the Chiefs, the Texans over the Chargers, the Packers over the Ravens, the Bengals over the Cardinals, the Seahawks over the Panthers, the Steelers over the Browns, the Saints over the Titans, the Jaguars over the Colts, the Buccaneers over the Dolphins, the Patriots over the Jets, the Giants over the Raiders, the Bills over the Eagles, the Bears over the 49ers, and the Rams over the Falcons for the last games of 2025. And then Week 18, of course, will be the first games of 2026. We, of course, get the Saturday doubleheader, and then all the other games on Sunday to determine who is going to be in the playoffs, which positions are going to be what's going to be the Week 18 finale, who's going to get the first pick in the draft, which teams will fire their head coaches on Black Monday. All those questions and more will be answered next week. So that said, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the NFL Network for this week of this Christmas week edition. Let me know your thoughts down below. Hit the like button, subscribe button, notification button. Check out the last episode we did, and as well as check out our playlist. And with all that said, from all of us here at the Reviewing Network Live, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, whenever you celebrate. Have the happiest holiday season, and I will see you guys next week. Happy holidays, everybody. The following has been a presentation of the Reviewing Network Sports.